really cared for the citizens of their as praja, including the animals. And the wife of the king and the queen mother were also very concerned about all of the for the betterment of the entire public. Not like in these days where politicians are only concerned about, what they can get out of their position. Raja Rishis were very concerned about their entire population, and so were their wives and their mothers, and that's why they were considered as Rajmatas and, Rajpatnis. And then also the wife of a Brahmana is also considered a mother. Brahmanas and Brahmanis were considered were kept in high esteem in Vedic society, because they really, taught the whole of the, Vedic society everything they needed to know, and they were the knowledge base for the entire society, in Vedic traditions. So the wife of the Brahmana is also considered a mother. Next slide. In the Bhagavatam, Krishna honors all of his mothers equally. Even though we consider Devaki and Yashoda as kind of the key mothers for Krishna, Krishna honored all of his mothers equally. He taught us how we should, have our etiquette towards all mothers, and give equal respect to every woman as a mother. Here in the West, Mother's Day is celebrated, a day of honor for our mothers. But in the Vedic tradition, every single day a mother was honored, not just on one Mother's Day. And even here, mothers are held in high esteem, and everyone, considers their mother as their first guide, and, their person who will, help raise them. According to the scriptures, Krishna honors all of his mothers, and in Srimad Bhagavatam 1:11-28, it says, Pravishtastu graham pitro parishvaktaha swamatrabihi vavande shirasa sapta devaki pramukha mudha. So after entering the house of his father, this is Vasudeva, he was embraced by the mothers present, and the Lord offered his obeisances unto them by placing his head at their feet. The mothers were headed by Devaki. The Supreme Lord himself, placed his head at the feet of all of his mothers. And it appears that Vasudeva, the father of Lord Krishna, had completely separate residential quarters where he lived with his 18 wives, out of whom Srimati Devaki is the real mother of Lord Krishna. But in spite of this, all other stepmothers were equally affectionate to him. Lord Krishna did not distinguish his real mother from his stepmothers, and he equally offered his obeisances unto all of the wives of Vasudeva present on the occasion. Even by the injunction of the Shastras, the stepmother, who is the wife of the father, is also as good as the mother, because the father is also one of the spiritual masters. Lord Krishna, the Lord of the universe, plays the part of an ideal son just to teach us how to treat their stepmothers. And Lord Ram also, as we know, even though Kaushalya was his birth mother, he honored Kaikeyi and Sumitra equally as his mothers, and never really considered them any different from Kaushalya herself. So the Lord, whether he in the form of Lord Ram or as Krishna, gives us an exemplary example of how we should treat all women as our mothers, especially those who are personally in our lives, whether they are our birth mothers or someone who's giving us guidance. They should all be considered mothers, and all Vaishnavis and everyone in our association should be considered as mothers. Next slide, please. Ganpati Govind, next slide. Okay. So the glorious position of mothers. So let's review the 7 mothers that are especially mentioned in the Shastras. So the first mother is the birth mother, but Devaki may have been Krishna's birth mother, but his pastimes with Mother Yashoda, his adopted mother, are, no different, and are very loving and glorious. Even though fear personified is afraid of Krishna, Krishna, the Supreme Lord, is afraid of Mother Yashoda's chastising and trembles in fear with tears in his eyes. And we know that in all of the Damodar Leela, Krishna, but as Mother Yashoda is chastising him, Krishna is genuinely, fearful of his mother. Such is the power of mother's love. And Mother Yashoda, being covered by Yogamaya, feels it is her duty to teach her son Krishna right from wrong, even though he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And even though Putana came with the intent of killing Krishna, was nonetheless honored as his mother because she offered her breast milk to Krishna. So Krishna did not even consider Putana as someone, that just because she offered him a little bit of breast milk, even though it wasn't with the intent of killing him, he still accepted that as something that she had offered to him and treated her as his own mother. And Srimad Bhagavatam 3:31-5 says, to take care of the child is the primary duty of parents, because if such care is taken, society will be filled with good population to maintain the peace and prosperity of society, country, and human race. In today's society, we see that, things are not as well as they should be, because parents sometimes do not have the time to raise the children, and teach them all the right values right from the beginning of their lives. So I'm going to ask if anyone has any other realizations about, considering the birth mother. So do you have any, other realizations about how we should be treating our mothers? None? Okay, then we'll go over all the slides and we'll come at the end of it. Perhaps you can think of some realizations that you have of your own mother. So next slide, Ganapati Govind. So the next mother among the 7 mothers in the Shastras is Bhumi Devi, Mother Earth. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it says, Sarva Kama Duga Mahi. The earth provides all of our, whatever we need, all of our necessities. The earth cares and provides for us in unendingly generous ways. We cannot live without farming and the earth providing us with all of our grains and vegetables and everything that we need. Even the minerals, the water, everything comes from Mother Earth. We cannot sustain anything in our lives without the generous, nature's bounty. Vedas say the best way to express gratitude to Mother is to utilize everything produced by her in the service of Lord Krishna and sustain ourselves with those offerings. So every day, everything that we get from Mother Earth, whether it's grains or vegetables or fruit, we should offer. It's so easy to just offer it to Krishna. This does not take a long time to do that, and then eat that as, prasadam after offering to Krishna. And that is what Bhumi Devi really appreciates. Everything that she gives in bounty, if it's offered to Krishna, she considers that, as the greatest appreciation we can provide to her. Mother Earth is a source of our sustenance, and we are duty bound to protect her. But in today's world, our irresponsible behavior is causing all kinds of pollution, global warming, calamities, so many floods, so many hurricanes, earthquakes, and so much destruction, because we have not really taken care of Mother Earth and are hurting her. Still, Mother Earth still considers her duty to protect her citizens. At the Bhumi Devi, just before the advent of Kali Yuga, overburdened by demoniac forces, she still considers her duty to appeal to Lord Brahma in the form of a cow and appeals to all the demigods, you know, and the demigods and her with the Purusha Shukta prayers. Lord Vishnu reveals to Lord Brahma that he will advent on earth in the Yadu dynasty in his original form of Lord Krishna. So even the advent of Lord Krishna was initiated by Mother Earth, Bhumi Devi, considering that there was so much, you know, so many bad elements on this earth that needed to be eliminated. Otherwise, the earth would not sustain itself. So she still cares for us, even though we are not caring for her. You know, that is the heart of a mother. Next slide, please. So we all know the story of Bhaumasura. So let's review that. Bhaumasura was a demoniac king, and he kidnapped 16,100 princesses. All the demigods pleaded to Krishna that he's causing much havoc on earth and the heavenly planets. So Krishna, even though Bhaumasura was his and Bhumi Devi's son, was willing to kill a son that was drunk with destructive power. When Bhaumasura is finally killed by Krishna, everyone rejoices. The demigods, you know, everyone on earth that he was troubling, everyone rejoices. Only Bhumi Devi, his mother, mourns the loss of even a misguided son. And with sweet prayers to Krishna, Bhumi Devi brings forth her grandson, Bhaumasura's son, Bhagadatta, to Krishna, and humbly pleads and prays that the sins of the father do not fall him, and prays for his protection. So look at Bhumi Devi's soft heart, that even a son like Bhaumasura, you know, who is, you know, reviled by everybody, the mother still mourns the loss and brings forth her grandson to at least that her grandson can propagate the family. Krishna, of course, happily awards him all blessings and also protects the 16,100 princesses, and at their request marries them in great splendor and brings them back to Dwaraka. So this is an example of how, you know, even a bad son is still, you know, losing a bad son, a mother's heart still mourns for him. And that is the heart of a mother, that a mother loves a son unconditionally. Next slide, please. So the next mother that is mentioned in our scriptures is a guru's wife. So Sandipani Muni and Sumukhi Devi were a guru and his wife during Krishna's time, and he was Krishna's guru. Krishna, Balaram, Uddhava, and Sudama were sent in the Vedic tradition to Sandipani Muni's ashram or Gurukula. In a Gurukula, students or disciples served the Guru sincerely, and the Guru or teacher imparted all knowledge to his deserving disciples without reservation. So basically, it was a transaction of love and service and not of monetary exchange. Not like today, where, you know, you spend $50,000, $60,000 to send a kid to college, and all they gain is some knowledge to do a particular job, but there is no real meaning or value to, you know, the meaning to discovering the meaning of their lives and what would happen to them at the end of their lives and where are they, you know, going from this life is never taught for all of the money that you pay. So the old system of Gurukula was very different. And the Guru's wife tended to the disciples also just as their own mother, very lovingly and with great care. And they boarded with the Guru and his wife as one family. Kula means family, so hence the word Gurukula. So the teacher's wife was also considered as their own mother because they were away from their families and their homes. And the Guru's wife was pretty much their caring mother while they were doing their studies at the Gurukula. So that is another example of a Guru's wife being considered a mother. So next slide, please. So the next mother among the 7 mothers is Gomata, or mother cow, or Surabhi, who's considered the celestial cow. So Srimad Bhagavatam 10:441 says, Vipra gavas cha vedascha tapaha satyam dama samaha shraddadaya titiksha cha kratavascha haresh tanu. The Brahmanas, the cows, Vedic knowledge, austerity, truthfulness, control of the mind and senses, faith, mercy, tolerance, and sacrifice are different parts of the body of Lord Vishnu, and they are the paraphernalia of a godly civilization. So all of these qualities are the sign of a godly civilization. So let us read that again. Austerity, of course, Brahmanas and the cows, that is, mentioned first. And then Vedic knowledge, austerity, truthfulness, control of the mind and senses, faith, mercy, tolerance, and sacrifice. So as these qualities decrease, then the civilization becomes much more degraded. So we can understand that from this verse. And even when we offer our obeisances to the personality of Godhead, we say, next slide, please. We say these prayers every day when we offer our bhoga and make our offerings to Krishna. Namo Brahmanya Devaya, Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha, Jagad Hitaya Krishnaya, Govindaya, Namo Namaha. When Krishna comes to establish real perfection in the social order, he personally gives protection to the cows and the Brahmanas. Gro Brahmana Hitaya Cha. This is the first interest, because without protection of the Brahmanas and the cows, there is no human civilization and no question of happy, peaceful life. So if you consider this, today's civilization, it really cannot be considered as, a truly human civilization since Brahmanas and cows are not respected and cared for as they should be. So as Brahmanas and cows are not taken care of, such a civilization goes down and becomes more degraded. And Surabhi is Krishna's favorite cow, so much so we know from the scriptures that his love for her is so great that when the demigod Indra needed forgiveness from Krishna after he lifted the Govardhan hill, and Indra had tried to devastate, Vrindavan, he knew if Mother Surabhi represented him, Krishna would deny him an audience to receive his mercy. So, Surabhi was considered in higher esteem by Krishna than even the demigods. So, when she came in front of Krishna, he was willing to give Indra an audience. And Indra also knew that if he had her to represent him, he would, have greater chance of getting forgiveness and mercy from Krishna. So she's considered also in the position of a mother. And besides that, we also know that she, takes so little from us and gives us her milk all of her life. And in that respect also, she is in the motherly position in our lives. Next slide, please. So the next mother mentioned among the 7 mothers in the scriptures is Dhatri. Dhatri is translated as nurse mother. So as nurse mother, we can, this can be people, anybody who takes care of us, even our, a nanny or something can be considered as a nurse mother. But in the Vedic tradition, a nurse mother meant a wet nurse or a foster mother. Since Dhatri acts as a substitute for mother, Ayurveda advises that a Dhatri should be thoroughly examined and selected before giving her the responsibility of taking care and feeding a child. In the Vedic tradition, a child, in Ayurveda, mother's milk is considered to be mandatory for a newborn. It is said that the mother's first milk is helpful in giving immense immunity to a child. Even as she grows for initial few months, a child requires nothing except breast milk. A child does not take any other food except breast milk. And breast milk is considered a full whole food, and the child does not need anything else to grow. It is an ideal diet for a newborn and contains everything to take care of the child's nutritional needs and appetite. Breastfeeding is also a way to make a child emotionally safe and secure. The warm touch and cuddling of the mother develops a kind of assurance in their minds of care and protection. In our modern day concepts, even though it is recently becoming more popular, breastfeeding and employing a wet nurse if the mother is unable to feed her child is considered somewhat an outdated concept. But we know that even in European countries this was done. We hear of Queen Victoria having a wet nurse. So this was not, almost considered mandatory for a child to get breast milk, and not any of the products that we use today to substitute for milk, which really does not build the same kind of immunity and nutrition that the child really needs. So the best is mother's milk when the child is growing up, and therefore Datri, or a nurse mother, is also considered in the position of a mother, just as also we earlier reviewed that Putana, even though she came with bad intent, because she gave Krishna her breast milk, he considered her as a mother and liberated her as a mother. Next slide, please. So the next mother among the 7 mothers is Rani Mata, queen or queen mother. And we have many examples of this in our Vedic tradition. The chief amongst them is Draupadi and Kunti Devi. Draupadi was a compassionate queen. Yudhishthira and all of the Pandavas, took care of their citizens, including Draupadi, as their own, brethren. They did not treat them as, someone. The king was just considered a representative of the people, and not necessarily someone who just, sat on a throne and received all adulation. So they really considered themselves as representatives and caretakers of their praja, or the citizens of their kingdom. And the glories of Draupadi, the wife and queen of the Pandavas, are many. We know of many stories of her and how great she is, how she depended on Krishna. And even as she was disrobed, Krishna, she just called upon Krishna, and Krishna saved her, many a time. But one stands out as a mother, as an extreme case of compassion under great pain and grief. Even though Ashwatthama killed all 5 of her adult sons, she still opted to forgive him when the Pandavas and Krishna wanted to kill him. Knowing her own pain, she could understand the pain of Kripi, Ashwatthama's mother, would go through if she lost her son. So she really asked the Pandavas, Arjuna, to forgive him. And then Krishna and Arjuna just decided to, cut off the jewel in his head, which they considered as good as killing him, but they did not physically kill him, and kept him alive. And that way Kripi would still have her son. Such is the heart of a mother, of compassion and forgiveness. I don't think any of us would be in a position, if 5 of any, children, any person whose 5 children were killed would have the capacity to forgive the person who killed them. And Draupadi also considered him a Brahmana, so she felt like she did not want to kill him. And he was also the son of Dronacharya, their superior and guru. So she, from all aspects, she had a compassionate heart to forgive Ashwatthama, even though he killed her sons, and had so much compassion in spite of being hurt so badly. The next is Kunti Devi. She's the queen mother of the Pandavas. Kunti Devi lived such a difficult life through all of her life. She lived a life of duty, raising her 5 sons as a single widow. After the death of Pandu, the father of the Pandavas, her suffering was constant. As a young unwed mother, she gave up her child Karna. She lived constantly in fear of the Kauravas trying to kill her sons, and she witnessed the killing of her 5 grandsons, which is even more painful than something, that happens to your own children. So when Krishna is about to leave Hastinapura and respectfully takes blessings of his paternal aunt and asks if there's something he can do for her, her prayers to him are like very astounding. She asks for more sufferings, saying that through all of her sufferings, she depended on Krishna, and he always protected them. And the suffering seemed like ecstasy with Krishna's constant remembrance and presence. So these are great examples of mothers who showed us exemplary, lives and how we should treat even enemies and people who do harm to us. They did not, they were not vengeful. They were not bitter. They lived their lives with equanimity and surrender to Krishna, and always depended on Krishna for everything that they did. And they saw everyone with an equal vision, in spite of, whatever they might have done to them. So these are Rani Matas. These were not ordinary people, and therefore they are considered in the position of a mother. Next slide, please. The next mother among the 7 mothers mentioned in the scriptures is Brahmani, or a Brahmana's wife, as mother. In Vedic culture, there is the culture of honoring Brahmanas and their wives, for they were considered the advisors to kings and rulers of all society. After the birth of Lord Krishna, this is mentioned in the Krishna book, Nand Maharaj, being very satisfied on this occasion, gave them different kinds of garments, ornaments, and cows in charity. And this is to the Brahmanas and their wives. Garga Muni was Nanda Maharaj's Rajapurohit, an advisor, and was treated with great respect and was always consulted for advice. And even today in India, families respect Brahmanas and have family purohits advising the family and conducting festivals and auspicious occasions. And the purohit and his wife Brahmani are honored as the father and mother of the family. The Brahmana and Brahmani are especially honored with gifts and washing of their feet at every auspicious occasion. And this tradition is present even to this day in India, and when I was growing up, my grandmother and grandfather, we lived in our grandmother and grandfather's house. They had a Purohit Brahmana who would come for all of the family occasions. Janmashtami, he would come and he would do all the, Archana and Pujas, and he was consulted for, the any kind of astrological, days that we wanted to have, for the cradling ceremony for a child, any of the marriages in the family, they were consulted. And the Purohit and his wife were honored by washing their feet and giving them gifts, for any of the special occasions and on any of the feast occasions. So this is a tradition even to this day in India that exists, that a Brahmana's wife is considered as a mother of the family and honored and respected for all of the special occasions. And also every day, in their everyday affairs, they're consulted for their advice and honored. So next slide, please. And ultimately, Srimati Radharani is our universal mother. The Hare Krishna Mahamantra, which is recommended, which is the recommended cure and solution, and the panacea for all of the problems of this age, starts with taking shelter of Mother Hara, Srimati Radharani. So on this Mother's Day, let us take shelter of Shuddha Bhakti and not Laukika Bhakti. pure bhakti and not worldly bhakti, asking for something that for all of our material needs. Let's try to ask, to purely, ask for spiritual strength and spiritual, advancement, and being confident that taking shelter of the holy name of Krishna will without a doubt purify us. And by Krishna's grace, at the end of our life, go back to Godhead, go back to his abode, Goloka Vrindavan. And Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati says that weakness is different from a cheating propensity or a show bottle spiritualism or a challenging attitude. We cannot cheat Krishna. We cannot pretend to be Krishna conscious, and show that we are advancing in Krishna consciousness. Krishna knows our heart. We cannot cheat Krishna, but we can sincerely pray to him to remove all of our anarthas of pride and envy, and ask him to help us to surrender unto him. And he will help us. Srimati Radharani, having an even softer mother's heart, if we appeal to her, she will help us, without a doubt. She's most compassionate. So let us take shelter of Mother Hara and the holy name and chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So I'm going to stop here and see if you have any realizations on this Mother's Day. Of course, Srila Prabhupada also asked us to chant and make our life sublime. So we take shelter of Srila Prabhupada and Mother Hara, and take shelter of the holy name. So if any of you have any realizations of your own mothers, what you learned when you were children, how you might have come to Krishna consciousness through anything that you learned from your mothers, please, any comments, questions, realizations? We would like to hear.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Shuddha Bhakti.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Thank you, Mataji. Very wonderful class. Very nice to hear from you. And regarding being the biological mother, because mother is like, as you explained, that mother is the first teacher in our lives. So we have grew up like seeing our mother, all my brother and sister, we have seen my mother, like how, from our childhood, seeing her, doing aarti, doing puja, plucking flowers, and, giving charity to the, saintly people coming to our home, or taking care of the, street dogs or cats, like that. Seeing that, we grew up like that. So we see in Prabhupada's life also that Prabhupada mentions that in the night when they are sleeping, his father used to come back from his shop closing, and then they used to hear the bell ringing. His father is performing the puja to the deities. So I think, and because parents are the first teachers, and the rest of the teachers, they come in your life as you grow and understand, realize. But yes, parents, they play a very important role, and mother is the most important person in one's life. Thank you, Mataji, for wonderful class.
Yes, no, all of the devotees, even devotees who grew up in other traditions than Vedic traditions, many of them who came to the Hare Krishna movement always say that their parents or their mothers were very devout and were very God conscious, whether it was in their Christian tradition or Jewish tradition or whatever tradition they came from. They do say that their first seed of that devotion to God came from their parents and their devoutness and their devotion to God. So I'm sure we are all grateful to our parents and grandparents for, planting that seed in our hearts. Anyone else? I see Jill put something in the chat. Jill, you want to speak about your mother?
Yeah, when since I grew up in Roman Catholic stuff, I know, just remember going into church, and every time I always questioned things, my mom said, just keep having faith. That's all you got to do. Just keep having faith. Things will get answered. Just keep having faith. That's how I remember her saying that.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, I have an older brother. I have an older sister and younger brother, and that was one of the things my mom and I were pretty close on.
Mm-hmm.
So, just keep having the faith. And that's, when I came here, everything fell into place.
Right. So even
Yeah.
though we did not understand everything, they still planted that seed of faith in our hearts,
Right. And here at ISKCON, everything fell into place, and
Mm-hmm.
it's much better.
Yes, but we're still thankful to our parents for planting that seed of faith,
Yes, that we are.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I wanted to say.
Anyone else? I'm sure all of you have a story about your mother, so please honor them with whatever you would like to say. No one has anything to say about their mothers? Is Pyari Prabhu on? And he can speak about his mother. I know he had a lot of stories about his mother. Guess he's not. Well, then I'm going to speak a little bit about my own grandmother. My grandmother was the first guru in my life. She was a great Vaishnavi. Of course, when we were growing up, we didn't see our grandmothers as, as advanced, and, that we thought like we were very modern and we knew everything. But obviously now, in our adult lives, we see the value of all the teachings they taught us as when we were children. My grandmother used to chant, that every festival was celebrated in our house with great pomp and splendor. And she would chant every single day. We grew up worshiping Lord Ram, and she would chant the Ram mantra, Shri Ram, Jai Jai Ram. And she taught us how to do the Japamala with the Rama mantra. Even when I was 6 years old, I remember my grandmother, no matter how tired she was. And in those days, housework was very tedious. It's not like you do everything very quickly, where we had everything, all kinds of machines to do the job. She, did all the cooking, very tediously from morning to evening, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And still she had time every single day to tell us stories. She had a book named Bhakti Vijaya. And from that Bhakti Vijaya, I think I heard a story of every single bhakta, Narsi Mehta, Purandar Das, Kanak Das, Tulsi Das, Namdev, Tukaram, all of these bhakta stories I heard from my grandmother. Every single day, no matter how tired she was, she would tell us a story about one bhakta per day. Of course, as when you're 6 years old, that's the time to really plant the seed of devotion in a child's heart. Because when you're 6 years old and your grandmother is telling you about this hero Krishna lifting the Govardhan hill, when Indra is sending all this rain, a 6-year-old, we did not have superheroes like Superman and Batman and Spider-Man. Our heroes were Krishna and Lord Ram, who conquered everything, no matter what the obstacle. So it was so wonderful to have such grandparents who, taught us that seed of devotion, even as we were little children. So I remember when I was, 6 or 7, and, all the way up to at least 12 years old, she told us stories all the time, and I remember even when I was like 10, 12 years old, of course, we chanted for material things, when we were little, because we did not understand the philosophy that deeply or well. I remember when if I lost my lunchbox, I would then I would say like, oh, I'm going to chant 10 rounds if I find my lunchbox, and then I would do 10 rounds if I found my lunchbox, even though it wasn't the best of best way to chant Krishna's and Lord Ram's name. It was still, from a child's perspective, it was still some level of advancement, and so, and even as I grew up, I mean, of course, as I went to college, you think that all of these modern, things are better than our old traditions. And you kind of get away from your culture a little bit, that my grandmother had imparted to me. I remember even in college, as I went to my exams, I would chant Krishna's names, I would think of Krishna, because she just put that faith and love for Krishna in our hearts. I'm sorry, which we can't even repay. It is a gift that we cannot repay ever. And I still miss my grandmother. So it's such a great responsibility of us as parents and grandparents to impart, devotion and Krishna consciousness to our children. And anything that you impart to little children stays with them forever. It doesn't go away from you. And because children are like sponges, they absorb things, very, very sincerely. So my appeal to all you mothers, of course, I'm probably the only grandparent in this group, but my appeal to, and I do this to my grandchildren too, to kind of pay it forward to what my grandmother taught me. To all of you mothers is, and I'm sure you're doing it, teach all your children. And even if they're not listening, you think they're not listening, it stays in the back of their mind, and it never goes away, and it stays with them. So I'm sorry to be blubbering here, but if we only have a few more minutes left, if any of you have anything to say about any of your parents still, I would say please honor them and say whatever you want to say. None of you have a story? Like, I'm sure all of your parents have inculcated something, within you for you all to be devotees today.
Mataji, this is Gampati Govindas. I remember when I was a kid, my grandmother, she used to make me sit on her lap, and she used to do abhishek of Lord Shiva at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So she used to make me do it with her.
Mm-hmm.
After that, also for many years, I used to do it every day.
Mm-hmm.
For how many years?
Well, and sincerely playing to Lord Shiva, Ganpati Govind brings you to Lord Krishna.
That's true. And I mean, I didn't used to pray anything. I used to just, it almost became like a ritual for me.
Mm-hmm.
Every day after taking bath, I would do the abhishek of Lord Shiva.
Mm-hmm.
Some water, of course, just water. Sometimes I used to use milk, but I
Mm-hmm.
was a little frugal. Try to use only water. So, but yeah, I still remember that was like I was really small. I think I would be about 3-4 years maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the best time to get those little kids. And I'm sure all of you are doing, that, passing on the tradition of bhakti to your children. And I can see that. I can see that in our, ISKCON kids, how well they do. And some of these little children, chant so nicely, speak so nicely, and even understand the philosophy. in their own way. And I see how advanced they are, even as little children. So if no one has any other, realizations to impart to us, or any mother reminiscences, I guess we can end here. So let us pray to all the Vaishnavas. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.